Today, our morning show light shines on the Weston School District, and one of our favorite guests, Molly Caston, District Administrator and 7th through 12th Principal at Weston Schools, joins us this morning. Was it foggy on the ridge?
Yeah, it was. It was foggy on the ridge. It always ends up being, a lot of times when I get there in the morning, it's not, and then you go out to leave to come here, and all of a sudden it's all foggy. So it's very foggy up there.
Settles in later in the morning sometimes, it seems like. So,
yes, it does.
School year is well underway. I really enjoyed your visit last time you were here with some youngsters that sang some schoolhouse rock. How did that presentation go?
The musical went really well. Had quite a few people show up, a lot of community members. We were really glad to see that. And the kids did a great job. And I'm so grateful to Mrs. Klump for taking that on, that she had students that wanted that opportunity. And she did it for the kids, which, is kind of the story for all of our staff, the things that we have to do for our kids to give them the different opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't have.
She and a lot of members of your staff wear multiple hats during the day, don't they?
Yep. You do not work in a small school district without having to do multiple responsibilities and positions and roles because, that's how we survive.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the referendum. That's something that we didn't touch on last time when you were here, but you are planning another operational referendum in April of next year. Can you talk about it a little bit?
That is correct. Our referendum failed in April of 2025, and prior to that, we were looking at just an operational referendum. Prior to that referendum, we had already been reevaluating our needs to make sure that we were reducing costs because as you do have declining enrollment and less students, there are different needs and you have to respond to that. And over the years, I know when I first came to Weston in 2015, there were 2 art teachers. Of course, now over the years, we're down to 1 art teacher because that's the need we have. And those are the kind of things that we have to continually adjust for. When I came into my position, originally, before I took the position, we had 4 different administrators. And when I took the position, we narrowed that down to 3 because declining enrollment, declining financial, the finances that we had, we needed to reduce that as well. So every time we have a resignation or a retirement, we're not filling those positions automatically, and we're evaluating what we need and continually reducing the cost throughout the year. We did that prior to the referendum, and then we had our failed referendum in April, and we continued on that track of keeping costs down, looking at any way that we can cut our costs. And then for our referendum in April, we're preparing for that now by spending a lot of time with our school board. We're looking at the budgets, we're looking at benefits, wages. We want to really make sure we're making an informed decision, looking at all angles for what our ask is going to be on the ballot.
Let's talk a little bit about the feedback that you got after the last referendum, Molly. Were there some things, some legit concerns that people brought your way?
Well, a lot of times they don't bring them directly to me. So I hear things, secondhand from people. I heard different things about people were already upset about how high their taxes were. There were people that felt that the district should just close. We have too few kids. Lots of, we need to cut our spending, all of those things that you hear. But again, a lot of it didn't come directly to me. It was brought in from different people that had heard someone say that. But that was the feedback that I received.
So you look ahead and, kind of spin it into a positive, some steps that you're taking as you prepare for next April then, Molly.
Yes, so some of the adjustments that we're going to continue to make is always being more efficient with our resources, making sure that we have the students are able to have opportunities, but we're being efficient with staffing and scheduling to make sure those schedules are full for staff, making sure that we're also being aware of the different, even something as simple as printing, all of those things, because those are high costs too. We're looking at also the different budgets. I know I've been reviewing those with Loretta Bormet. I almost said her wrong name. Loretta Bormet, our Director of Business Services, and we're looking at pieces of the budget where we can cut things other than just in the biggest portion, which is our staffing. That takes up the biggest amount of our resources. So a lot of us are looking at a lot of different things, a lot of different parts, so that we can make sure we're being responsible with taxpayer dollars as well.
It's important to be transparent to the public, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So we're going in with, we just had a meeting last night, our facilities and finance meeting, committee meeting, and we looked at our wage scales for support staff and teachers. We started looking at benefits, all of those pieces that go into that we have to know where we're at to be able to make a decision on what the amount that we're going to ask for our referendum.
So you haven't come to a conclusion on that yet?
Nope, we are still reviewing a lot of data. And the decision, we'll have the resolution to go to referendum in our January board meeting, because the paperwork needs to be completed by January 27th, and we have a week in there. So leading up to that, we'll know soon, but we still have to look at all this data to make sure that we're making the most informed decision and only asking for what we need.
You're here for information, but you're also here to kind of quell some misinformation, which that does tend to get out there. Anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of misinformation. I know after the failed referendum in April, I had students coming to me talking about where were they going to go to school next year because they were told that the school was closing. And the thing to know is that if a school goes through a dissolution process, it's a lengthy process. It's not something that you're going to fail a referendum in April and then by the following school year your school is closed. There are also districts that have attempted to go through that dissolution process and they've been denied. It hasn't been approved. So it takes a lot of time. And also people to understand that if a district does close, the debt of the district is reassigned. It's not that it's gone. So those debts are still there for that district. And then if a district does close, your district, and there's a process you have to go through, there's different to find out where everyone in your district, what districts they will go to. And so there's a lot that goes into it, and it's not something that would happen from April to September.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it wouldn't automatically go to all the students go to Reedsburg, for instance, or go wherever. It'd be broken up then, in other words.
Yes.
Yeah. And then as far as that debt, if let's say 30% go to this district, is 30% of the debt following those students, or how does that work?
I'm not exactly sure how it's reassigned. It follows with the taxpayers that live in the district that's dissolving. I'm not sure how it gets reassigned exactly, but the debt is still there, and it's still there with the taxpayers.
These aren't scare tactics you're using. This is the cold, hard truth, isn't it?
Yeah, that's, and it's something we need to talk about, and people need to be aware of the different, the situation that we're facing at this point.
Again, it comes down to funding or lack thereof. And I know that a lot of districts are in the same boat. What you thought you were going to get, you found out in July or August that you weren't going to get that amount, right? Right,
yeah. Our state aid was reduced this year, I believe, and I shouldn't quote numbers without having them in front of me. Our state aid was reduced, I believe, $190,000 this past year. And then also, I don't believe we got all of our costs that we were promised-ish for our special education reimbursements as well. And that's something that's always less than what is predicted.
Other schools talk about paying for vouchers. Does Weston have a lot of debt that way or not?
Yeah, we do. One of the things that with us for vouchers this past year, we lost $148,000 from our budget, not from our budget, from our revenue that went to voucher schools. And so that's an increase. I don't know how much it was the year before, but there's $148,000 that our school district has lost to nothing we have done. Nothing that, that we can, and there's nothing that we can even do about it. And we've lost that to go to, and those are going to private schools. Those vouchers are paying for private schools. And, for us, that's about 2 staff members, right? So that's the cost. And sometimes, maybe a little bit more than 2 staff members, depending on the staff. But that's about 2 staff members that we lost through no fault of our own.
Plus benefits or whatever that they would receive.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. I know you have a huge Amish population in the district as well. A lot of those students, of course, they don't attend Weston schools, but you've got a big number of children in the area that don't go, right?
That is correct. When we do a yearly count of the students that live in our local education agency within our school district, and we report that to the state. And it's usually, I can't remember the number off the top of my head, I should have wrote that one down, but it's about equivalent to the number of students that we currently have at Weston that are attending the private schools in the Weston School District, and those are the Amish students.
As far as DPI funding, in fact, a caller mentioned a 10.85 decrease, or 190,941, largest decrease in the area for Weston, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
That's true?
Yes.
That's tough to deal with when you've kind of got your budget set and everything.
Yes.
So.
Well, and it's hard to set your budget because we don't find, we have a timeline of when you do your budget, but you don't always get your numbers. You don't get the numbers of what you're going to get before you have to have those conversations and planning.
So moving ahead here, you got to try to spin this into a positive. What are some steps you're looking at doing here in the coming months?
Well, in the coming months, making sure to share the information so that people in the community are aware of the different options that we have. That everyone talks about too with declining enrollment. They want to talk about too consolidation. That's another term that's out there where you consolidate with another school district. And that's something that actually within the past week, legislature had approved, I believe there was 5 different bills that were in regards to consolidation. So there was some money for feasibility studies, some whole grade sharing, and some encouragement for districts to incentivize consolidation. So they found some money out there for consolidation. So that's something too that people are often talking about is consolidation. So that's something too that we need to make sure people understand that process as well, because again, this comes down to if people in the school district do not feel that it's something that they want to keep their school, we do have to look at what other options are going to be out there. Consolidation is not an easy process either, and that's something that people need to understand what that would look like as well.
Mm-hmm. You lose your identity. Communities
right.
really do, and it's
and the same with. For me, the disillusion, that piece, our students would be lost completely, to be divided up and go to different places, and big places. When you come from a school that's 211 students and all the people there, and to go from that to a bigger district, that those kids will be lost in that shuffle. So with a consolidation, it could look a little bit different. But, still it's hard. But I want people to know what options that we have, what we're doing, and so that they can make an informed decision on what they want for their district.
if the referendum this coming next April, if it did fail, it's not the final say-all. You would have another referendum still, right?
Yep, there would be another referendum in November of the November 2026. We would go for that again. But in the meantime, there would be significant cuts that we would have to make. Our school board, that's one of the things that we're working on, looking through the budgets and all of the staffing and all of those pieces, that we will have a plan for if it does not pass. These are the choices and decisions that we have to make of what we need to cut so that we can continue to operate. And it will also more than likely include a state trust fund loan.
Now, as far as buildings and everything, I think you're sitting pretty well at Weston, aren't you?
Yeah, our building is in good shape. The taxpayers have spent money on it to keep it up to date. We had a capital improvement referendum in, oh man, I'm not going to say the right year. Was it 21? I think. I can't remember the date of that. But we had a capital improvement, and that passed. And so our district has been dedicated to upholding our district for a long time, and we're asking for them to continue that in the future.
Well, you're not a native of the Weston District, but this is something you really believe in, you're passionate about. And when you're thinking about that and you're out there spreading the word, you're thinking about those students, I'm thinking, more than anything, aren't you?
Yes. I can't imagine, our kids have been in that community, most of them their whole lives. We get, which that's a strength at Weston, and sometimes it makes it a challenge, because in our class sizes are so small. And most of those classes are the same kids that they've gone to school with since 4K. And there's always a couple of new kids that come and go, but because of that, it would make it so difficult for them to go somewhere else. When you're in a class of knowing everyone, knowing all the people that work in this school, it's just really, really different. And we have a family feel within the district, not only with staff but with students, and it's something. It would just be so. I can't imagine our students having to go to a bigger school and how that would impact them. They have their school community that reflects their values and their traditions, and to go somewhere else would be drastically different for them.
It would be breaking up the family a little bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And we talked, I think, a little bit about funding and special education funding again, which did get a little bit of an increase this year, but it must not have helped as much as you thought. Is that correct?
Yeah, and with special education funding, one of the things that is difficult with special education is something that a school district, a local education agency, is required to provide special education services to any students that qualify within their district. There's qualifying criteria that they have to go through, that they have to meet through assessments, and you make that decision in a team that includes required people that have to be there, including the parents, and then you decide if a child qualifies for special education. Once you determine they qualify, you decide what their programming is going to look like. One of the things that we can not say is if a child needs a service, we can't say we can't afford that, or we don't have that service here. We have to find it. And special education services are costly, especially if you have some of those low incident disabilities that have, specialized needs within a specialized group as it is, if you're looking at a student that is blind or visually impaired, or a student who is deaf or hard of hearing, those services are things that we have to contract out for. We also have to contract out for occupational therapy, physical therapy, because we don't have enough of a need within our building to have somebody full time. And so those are costly services. And so our reimbursement, they're predicted for this next year to be at 42%, but we're not planning that high because we want to make sure we have a cushion if not. But we don't get reimbursed for the full amount of special education services that we provide from the state.
Do you take advantage of Richland Center? Because I know they have a new school in Rockbridge. Do you have any students?
Yes, we reach out to any areas to find whatever we may need for any students. So we work with CISA 3. We can have some over the years we've done with orientation and mobility, which is for students that are blind or visually impaired. We've also had students that needed some deaf and hard of hearing services that were there. So we have CISA 3, we have Gunderson Lutheran, we have all different places that we have to reach out to provide specialized services.
Molly Caston, our guest on the morning show representing Weston Schools. We'll come back and talk about some of the things coming up on the schedule and more here as this school year whips by. We're coming up on Thanksgiving break. We'll have more coming up here in just a moment. Molly Caston, District Administrator for Weston Schools, our guest here on WRCO Radio as we talk about the possible upcoming referendum in April in the District of Weston. And according to Wisconsin Policy Forum, Wisconsin and what they spend on pupils, I think that recently came out. How does Wisconsin rank?
So Wisconsin spends 9.9% less per pupil on public education than the national average. We also rank 26th out of 50 states on our per pupil amount spent. And we continue to decline on that list. We were much higher before. And so Wisconsin continues to reduce the amount of money they're willing to spend per pupil. And, these are students, that's our future. And so I don't understand where the shared, it should be a shared responsibility between your local taxpayers and the state of Wisconsin to pay for education. So, we have to look at that. And while they're continuing to provide less per pupil, we do continue to have more demanded of us of what we have to do in schools. If you remember, I know we've talked a lot about Act 20, and Act 20 is about the science of reading. And with that legislative, when that came out and the expectations from it and the requirements, it took a lot of manpower to fulfill the requirements of that. And manpower in our district, having one person that's tied up completely in that, there's pieces that they're having to double up on and different things that they have to do. It takes a lot of work, and there wasn't anything we received for this to fulfill that. There is a math equivalent to Act 20 that's on the horizon. So now we're going to need to do something similar with math. And though some of the, it's good that we're focusing on reading and math because those are the basics, but it's really difficult when we have to dedicate so much time and effort to those things while we're also getting less and less per pupil.
Revenue limits kept up for a while, back in the day, didn't they?
Yes, I believe it was, they kept up with they adjusted for inflation until I believe 2009. And after that, if we look at just this school year alone, if we calculate the impact of the inflation gap, the total estimated revenue loss for the Weston School District is approximately $838,200 for just this school year alone. And that is just for this year, for what we've been lacking in inflation costs. And there's been several years between there, and what a difference that would make in our financial outlook.
You've had a chance to chat with our representatives. I know Representative Kurtz was at Weston Schools recently. So obviously one of the keys is to put a bug in the ear of some of our representatives. And what do you say to somebody like Representative Kurtz?
First of all, I was grateful that he showed up at Weston very early on a Monday morning and was able to ask him some of these things. Ask what I know at the time I was pretty a little bit angered a little bit because there was the week before there I had gotten these potential legislative updates that came in, and there was 11 of them, and I looked at them and I wanted to ask him why all of these things. Why can't we focus on paying for our schools, right? And I was able to hear from him that some of these were just things that they probably weren't going to go to the floor, that it was about getting discussions out there because these are things that we have to discuss. Okay, I can understand that. But also we do need to discuss, I feel, how we're funding our schools. And instead of spending a lot of time and effort looking at throwing out, feasibility studies and whole grade sharing and some of those things, can we also look at the funding? And I did ask him too, because in my limited time, I do not have time to look at what other states are doing. Are other states in the same boat that Wisconsin is? There are other states that have to be in similar situations, and are we looking to them to find out what they're doing? So, and he explained to me that, that someone he is working with is very involved in all of the other states, their different education forums that they are, so that they're sharing information that way, is what I was told. And that some of the consolidation pieces, that's where it's coming from.
Okay. You have some information meetings in the public or for the public coming up here in not too far down the road, Molly.
Yes. So December 3rd, it's hard to believe, a week from tomorrow is December. December 3rd at 5:30 in the high school gym, we're going to be talking, our first presentation is about how school funding impacts Weston, a conversation with our community. And we have planned this for this referendum year. We have 3 different presentations, and they all have a different topic. We also want to keep it more brief so that there's more time for people to ask questions, and we want to encourage many community members to come to these meetings so that they can get accurate information, so that they can make an informed decision on what they want to see for the future of their school district.
So you could come to each meeting and hear a little bit different presentation and take on it then. That's
correct. In January, the second presentation is about supporting Weston together, understanding our operational referendum, and at that one is when we will have the amount and the type. There's talk between recurring, non-recurring. That's a decision the board is going to be making, and how long the referendum will be for. So that will be on the second presentation on January 28th. And then on March 2nd, the third one is our future as a community, what a passed or failed referendum means for Weston. And so at that presentation, we will talk about the specific cuts, the next steps for the district, so that people understand what the next steps could be, and they can making an informed decision. And it's about what the taxpayers of the Weston School District want.
Some upcoming events. How is the co-op with Ithaca going? They've got another game coming up here shortly, I believe.
Yep, they do. That basketball co-op is going well. Girls won last night, I believe.
Yes,
an exciting
46-44.
Yep. So that was pretty exciting. That's going well. Working out a lot of kinks with that. It's, even though we've had co-ops with Ithaca in other sports, there's still a lot of details that you have to work out that look different for each sport. So we've been working on a lot of that, but overall it's going well, and I believe a positive experience for our girls.
Yeah, I was kind of at a loss because when I covered the first game last week, I wasn't sure about the mascot. And I guess that's always kind of a work in progress. Somebody told me when they're at Ithaca, we call him Ithaca Weston. When we're at Weston playing, it's Weston Ithaca. So I'm not sure if the Bulldog follows Ithaca and the Silver Eagle, or are you going to combine them, or is there some thought for that?
Well, my thought, and this is something I've we actually met at Ithaca. We had to meet last night with their district administrator and AD. And this was brought up because someone said, hey, they don't know what to call us on the radio. And I said, well, it's Ithaca Weston girls basketball team or Weston Ithaca. I think it's because Ithaca Weston Wrestling. It was always just Ithaca Weston Wrestling. So that's why I think of it that way. But I told that group that I believe that it is should be a student decision, that I don't think the adults sitting in a room should be the ones making the decision on what the mascot is. And yes, we'd want to support kids and trying to come up with something. There's a whole process you can do, but I would like the kids to have a voice in that. I don't want the adults making that decision.
That's a good idea. And I've asked some other schools. I saw Potosi Cassville last week, and I asked them what they did, and they've never come up with a conclusion, but they said some community member came up with a name, and no one liked it, so they didn't use it. So, I mean, it's one of those things where, again, an adult came up with the idea. Maybe a student idea, maybe a vote, that would be a good thing.
Yep. Put together a student team, a student committee that between both schools that those kids can work on and develop and figure out what it would look like and what it is. But, I don't want to make that decision for them.
Sure. Yeah. The only reason I needed to know is when you refer to them as, the Bulldogs or Silver Eagles, it's easier to say than Ithaca Weston all the time. So it was just for selfish reasons I was asking that. So.
Yep. No mascot yet.
Okay.
Right now we're Ithaca Weston or Weston Ithaca. I know for wrestling they have something that they use, but
that's unofficial.
That is unofficial. Yep. And then I think for track they use they have something unofficial too, which that's great for them because some of those ideas, though the athletic director, some of those ideas she isn't really fond of and is very vocal about not liking that. We're take those kids' ideas into consideration as we develop something.
Awesome. You have a new girls wrestling coach this year too.
Yes, we do. We're very excited to have a dedicated girls wrestling coach. This year she is working with the high school and the middle school girls. And so we actually have started our middle school girls wrestling team has started already. So in our conference, the way they have done over the years, with middle school basketball and wrestling for the boys is they alternate, right? You have one in one season and one after Christmas. They split it up so that kids at that age can try both. We're doing the same thing in our conference for wrestling. So the girls have started wrestling now, and then they will have girls basketball after Christmas for the middle school kids. So we have quite a few girls out, which of course, I'm very excited to see and very pleased that we have that dedicated coach for them so that we can grow, girls wrestling is one of the fastest growing sports right now.
Yeah, it is. It's doing well. Boys basketball, they start tonight too.
Yep, first game of the season for our boys basketball, and that's at home tonight. So that'll, start that season, and then we, next week, there's going to be a lot of activities with all the different sporting events once next week after we get back from Thanksgiving break. There's going to be a lot going on.
Yeah, and what's the schedule for Thanksgiving break? Are you off school tomorrow then?
Yes, we are off school tomorrow, which is nice to have that day. We don't have any students or staff, so I'll be happily in my kitchen with my granddaughters preparing my Thanksgiving feast.
Getting ready. And there's a craft fair.
Yes, the craft fair on Saturday, and that is from 8 to 2. And so make sure to come out to that. It's usually well attended, and that is our music department's fundraiser for the year. And then there's a lot of other different groups that have different fundraising pieces in the craft fair.
Speaking of your music department, I'm guessing they probably have a holiday concert.
They do. And last year, we decided to try something different with our junior high and high school band and choir concerts. We started doing those during this school day because I don't want any kid to have to decide between a sport and the arts. But it's difficult too because you can plan to have something in the evening around a concert, but it never fails that there's a weather delay or something and you have to reschedule and you have very few options. So we do ours during the day so that our students can come and participate in their band and choir concert. And then if they have to, they can load the bus like we did last spring when we did our spring concert. They did their concert and then the track kids had to take off for one of their tournaments or meets. And, we don't want kids to have to make a choice. It's already hard enough to fill a team. We're not going to do that. So December 17th, we have our junior high and high school band and choir at 1 in the afternoon. And then at 2 o'clock is the elementary concert.
Do it all in one day, one fell
Yes, we
swoop.
do.
Yeah. So parents can say, maybe if they have students, both grade levels, they can, or all 3 grade levels, they can stay for the whole thing then.
Yes.
So, good. Well, thanks for the information today, Molly. And I know you're passionate about it, that Weston is getting a quality education, and I know you're fighting to keep it going then.
Yes. Doing all that we can. Education, it's not a privilege, that is a right. And, all kids, including mine at Weston, deserve the right to a quality education. And a quality education includes that kids are able to go to a school in a community that shares their values and traditions. So, Weston is a place that many call home, and we need to keep working to keep this district intact for the community for years to come.
Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Molly Caston joining us from Weston Schools, their district administrator and the 7th through 12th principal. Anybody has any questions, Molly, they can reach out to you as well, right?
Yes, they can. My number, you can find me on the website. I want people to reach out because I want to talk to people. I want to hear what they have to say. I want to hear their concerns so that if it's something that is inaccurate, I can give them the correct information, or also it's something I need to think about moving forward that one person is sharing with me. So it's important to talk. So please share.
We'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you for having me.